Screen share. Can everybody see my screen?
Yeah.
I'm gonna change. I need to change the view here a little bit. Okay. Okay. Well, thank you, ladies, so much for joining us on a Saturday morning. We just wanted folks to have the opportunity to be refreshed, so you can engage with us and you know, take in as much information as possible. We will introduce ourselves in the next few slides, but my name is Yasmin, founder and executive director of ScholarCHIPS Inc. And welcome to our mentor training and orientation.
Good morning. My name is Gwendolyn Hawkins Bazwai, and I'm the operations manager and the mentoring program coordinator. Thank you so much for being here, because I would love to be kicked back with an old cowboy movie and a cup of coffee, but we're glad to have you here, and thank you so much for participating.
Thank you so much, Gwen. And so ScholarCHIPS mission and vision, I will preface and say that we have done here what any communications or marketing expert will tell you not to do, which is fill your slides with text. However, there's a lot of information that we want to share with you, and it's in our case, it's important to incorporate this in our slides, which we will share with you. So I just ask for your forgiveness in advance that our slides are wordy, but they are packed with power and really important information. ScholarCHIPS mission is to provide college scholarships, mentoring, and a peer support, well, a support network. And within that support network is a peer support network to youth and young adults who have incarcerated parents, inspiring them to complete their college education. Our vision is ScholarCHIPS envisions a world where children of incarcerated parents are no longer marginalized and stigmatized by society, that they have equal access to higher education, and ultimately experience a future absent of poverty and incarceration. And I'll just preface and say, as you may have realized by now, ScholarCHIPS are the population that we focus on. The ages range from roughly, 17, 18 years old, all the way to about 24. We have maybe a couple who are a little older, but most of them are between 18 and 24 years of age, 23, 24 years of age. But the children of incarcerated parents within this vision, it's a more of a research term and a scholarly term, but it is all encompassing. So even though I am now 28 years old, in research terms, I would still be considered the child, I am the child of someone who is incarcerated. So just wanted to share that. So we have community agreements. Ours are be present, participate, and engage with our facilitators, the team, and your colleagues on the phone. We encourage you to ask questions, silence cell phones, step up, step back. So if I know that you all have been in many presentations. I'm sure you know what that means, but I don't want to assume. So step up, step back is if when you're in a group setting that is especially interactive and you are participating, if you seem to be speaking a lot or taking up a lot of space, just keeping in mind that there are some people who may not be as outgoing, and they may have something to say, but sometimes it takes a few minutes for them to gather up the courage to speak and to ask. So we just ask that you engage, but you also allow others to engage and ask questions and make comments as well. We ask that we all honor this space and honor it as a safe space. And so, what you share within this space will be held in confidentiality. What you say is respected and honored and acknowledged. we ask that you keep as much as possible an optimistic, positive attitude. That is what ScholarCHIPS is all about, even through with our individual stories and life and the whole mission and operations of ScholarCHIPS. It's all about having a positive attitude and, you know, pushing through our obstacles, but realizing that we don't have to do it alone. We do it as a community. We lift each other up when one of us is down or needs help and encouragement and support. Don't yuck someone's yum. So if someone says something, unless it's you know, completely just inappropriate, which is not likely, you know, we respect the things that you like and things that you bring to the forefront. We want to appreciate what it is that you have to say and want to share. So with that, does anyone have any additional agreements or provisions in this agreement that we would like to add? No? Okay, all hearts and minds clear. So these are our community agreements. I'm sorry, was someone going to say something?
I was just say they all sound good to me, so.
Awesome, yay. Okay, so with that, we have our community agreements and we will move forward. We are so glad you are here. As Gwen mentioned, we realize it's a sacrifice. I mean, the fact that you've already gone through a background check that you know you paid for, and your references and an application, and now you're here on a Saturday, and we don't take that lightly. So we just thank you for making this commitment to serve your community and to pay it forward by becoming a mentor to a ScholarCHIPS scholar. You will, I know that you already have made huge impact in different ways with people in your life, but you will continue to make huge and a positive impact with your mentorship. So yes, this is the team, and we sort of already introduced ourselves, but I will, Gwen, did you, and then Kyle is not here with us today, so I will mention who Kyle is and why we're so happy to have him as a part of our team as well. Gwen, was there anything that you wanted to add, maybe why you decided to come to ScholarCHIPS and what it is that you do and you know, why you're excited to be a part of ScholarCHIPS?
Initially, when we spoke the first time and you told me your story, that was enough for me. And I've had a long history of engaging children at multiple departments within the federal government and the district government. So children are a soft spot for me. And just quickly, I'll explain to you why I have the passion that I have for what Yasmin is doing. I have a 33-year-old son, and at 5.5 months, he got a DPT vaccine, and it ate up 60% of his brain. So my son has lived his life in a wheelchair, and he has not been able to execute his life like the rest of us. So that's where the root of my passion for children lies. Even though I can't change what happened to him, I can give my energy, my experience on a lot of different levels to help children from babies. And now Yasmin's organization is allowing me to round up my community work with young adults. So I am happy to be here. I believe in what she's doing. I do believe that her work is God's work. And nothing replaces helping someone and seeing the impact of your help. So that's why I'm here.
Thank you so much, Gwen. And another member of our team, Kyle is not officially staff, but he is definitely family, Mr. Kyle Bacon. He is a teacher at Turner Elementary School. I believe Turner is either in Northeast or Southeast DC. Please forgive me, I'm having a moment here. But he's also a training facilitator, learning center director at the US Dream Academy. And the you may have heard of the US Dream Academy, but they are also a nonprofit organization. They have an office in Maryland, and they have a few other offices across, well, centers across the country. And their focus is mentoring school-aged children who have incarcerated parents. So young people through children through grade school. And so Kyle has done that work, continues to, he's been a mentor for many, many, many years. And he just brings such a special viewpoint on mentoring and actually he calls it bi-directional mentoring, where it's a two-way street. So just as much as the child or youth or young adult learn from the mentor also learns and receives value and information, right, from their mentee as well. So he's not with us today, but we will schedule one more session, maybe for about an hour, and he has some interactive activities around bi-directional mentoring. So we want to open the floor and have an icebreaker. If you could share, if each of us could go around and share your name, your career focus. Please share any mentoring experience that you have had. If there's one in particular that stands out to you, feel free to share. It could be, of course, positive, but it could be, maybe an experience that might not have been that positive, or maybe there were some challenges that you faced. And then why did you choose to become a mentor at ScholarCHIPS? So I think what we'll do is I will select one, and then we can just popcorn, if that's okay. Dana, would you like to go first?
Sure. My name is Dana Quainer. I am a technology and management consultant doing a lot of project management kind of work. So mentoring experience that I've had in the past, we did Big Brothers, Big Sisters in my first job, not the one I'm currently in, where they would bring in, so I'm based in Philadelphia, and the kids would come into the office because a lot of them have never actually been downtown or to Center City. And they would spend their lunch with us instead of doing lunch and resource. And then there were a couple of days where we'd flip and we would go to their school and hang out with them, which was a lot of fun. And I like that you mentioned about the bi-directional mentoring, because I learned a lot from my littles as much as I hope they learned from me. And then not so much in a different capacity. I've been a mentor at work for kind of new hires as they come in, and that's a little bit different, but it has kind of two arms to it. One is you're teaching them how to do the job, but the other one is you're teaching them how to be an employee at the company and kind of what the culture is and how to interact with people. So I chose to become a mentor because I've had some really wonderful mentors in my life when I was the mentee. And so for me, if I can pay that forward, that's a way to kind of keep that going and keep the positive energy flowing. And then, I have to popcorn someone. I'll popcorn Catherine.
So my name is Catherine Nanji. I'm a registered nurse. So with mentoring, I have volunteered at church a lot. We have this, I guess, for the kids' church. So I work in the baby classroom on Sundays. And another thing, like Dana mentioned, is the new hire, preceptee is what we call them. So I have lots of student nurses sometimes and new hire nurses who I precept. And why I chose to be a ScholarCHIPS mentor is because I am also a child of an incarcerated parent, or two incarcerated parents, when I was going to college. So this is like personal for me. I will popcorn Kristen.
Hi, everybody. So my name is Kristen Miner. I am the Director of Recruitment at a consulting company, actually the same organization that Dana works for. I haven't done any mentoring in the past. It's something I would really like to do. And I learned about ScholarCHIPS through Linea. We had partnered with them on helping them with some work in the vision, and Yasmin really sold it. So when I heard about this opportunity, I thought I had a lot of value to add. I have 2 children, one who I just moved into college a month ago. And so I've been through this process of college applications, and it can be complex and it can be a lot to wade through. And so I feel like, there's a lot that someone might not know if they don't have somebody guiding them. So as I've kind of learned this, and I have a son also who is a sophomore in high school, so I'm kind of now going through this again, and I'm like, why not help someone else and share my knowledge and experience? So that's why I decided to come on. The mission and vision of the company is just, I think, so great, and I'd love to help where I can. Oh, and I need to popcorn to someone. I'll popcorn to Stephanie.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Stephanie Cummings-Carr. I am a partner executive with Amazon Web Services. The mentoring experience that I have is I've been a part of a Rites of Passage mentoring program for teenage girls ages 13 to 17 for the past 21 years. Working with young people has always been my passion, perhaps because I don't have any biological children of my own, and I just love pouring into young girls, as I've done for a very long time. And I chose to become a mentor with ScholarCHIPS because it's a mission that I really was never focused on. Children of incarcerated parents. I think it's a wonderful initiative, and I'm always just enamored and just, excited of how oftentimes children can come from various different backgrounds and just thrive, to graduate and from college and go on to lead meaningful lives and careers. And Yasmin is a perfect example of that, who is the CEO of ScholarCHIPS. So that's why I chose to, be a part of her mission and this organization. So thank you.
And Stephanie, can you pop? Well, I think there's only Anne. Last
Oh,
but
okay.
not least.
I'm sorry. I popcorn Ann.
Don't worry. And also you all, Stephanie, I don't know if she mentioned it, but she's also a board member of ScholarCHIPS. She joined the board
Yes.
here.
That's right. How can I forget that? Thank you, Yasmin.
Okay.
Stephanie?
Okay, I'll go ahead. Yeah, for whatever reason, my viewing option, I couldn't see Stephanie at first, so I'm glad that you were there, and I was thinking I was about to be next, and then I wasn't. Anyway, so I'm Ann Conley Maslish. My career focus is social work. I got my master's. I had been a teacher of English as a second language, and then I got my master's in social work and had a couple of different jobs. But then I really was focused on the 3 children that my husband and I have been raising. The oldest is 23 and the youngest is 18. And but in the past 10 years, I've been able to do some part-time social work, both doing grief counseling and trauma counseling through the Went Center in DC, both for adults and also in school settings. Before COVID, when we were going into schools, and I would be paired with another social worker and supporting their work and doing grief and trauma groups for kids from kindergarten all the way through high school. And another type, so that obviously included some mentoring, but also another mentoring type of volunteer job that I've done is at the Duke Ellington School for the Arts,
Hmm.
where I've been a college coach for about 5 years. I'm not doing it right now, but the prior 5 years, where we would help students with their college process. And some of the students I've worked with have had a lot of hardships and a lot of different types of backgrounds. And it's been super powerful and meaningful. And as has been pointed out already, the I've gotten so much out of it and learned so much through the students and been so inspired by what they've been able to pursue despite the hardships that they've encountered. So it's been an incredible learning experience for me. So I learned about ScholarCHIPS. I feel like I'd heard about it along the way. I've lived in DC for such a long time, but a neighbor friend of mine who's a clinical psychologist is involved with it. And so when she mentioned it, I just thought, that's so totally up my alley. I would love to be a part of this. And so I'm excited to take this on, and I'm eager to learn more today. So thank you.
Thank you all so much. And I was looking down, but I promise I was I was hearing and actively listening to everything that each of you have shared. I was taking notes. I wanted to remember why the reasons that each of you mentioned you were interested in becoming a ScholarCHIPS mentor, because that's helpful also for us to know various reasons that draw mentors to ScholarCHIPS. So before I go any further, I think we covered this, but did you want to do the icebreaker as well?
Oh, okay. I've done a lot of mentoring through DC Public Schools. When I first came into the agency, I was hired as an executive assistant for the COO, and we had 10 divisions underneath us. And there were 2 divisions that provided direct service to children. DC Public Schools decided to address the issue of young girls in high school and sometimes junior high, unfortunately, becoming pregnant and not having the resources or totally being prepared for a child. So what we would provide would be car seats, diapers, clothes, a mentoring piece, talk about health issues after, the baby comes and before. So children are faced with a lot of things that they shouldn't have to be dealing with. But I'm glad that there are people in this world that are willing to share their life experience and pick up the ball with someone who is less fortunate, and give them some meat, some security, and to know that there's someone that they can trust. So the other part of my experience with young folks and little children and teenagers was DC Parks and Recreation. I was there for 20 years. So back in the day, we had a group of mentors that would go with some of the students that got into police trouble. They would go to court, they would mentor them, They would help the family, and they were called the roving leaders. Maybe, Ann, you remember that initiative in DC about the roving leaders? Okay, well, they were nestled in DC parks and recreation, and they spent a lot of time in the community. And being over that part of that function, I had direct contact with them as well. And then my last stint that I did in student placement before I retired, student placement was responsible for placing every student in DC public schools. However, they had a section which we call student placement where there were high risk students. These were students that had mental issues. They had police issues, and they were sent to our office because it was actually the last stop of where they could go to get help before MPD or CFSA, took control of their life, and putting them in a system. So I believe in helping. I was raised that way. And when somebody needs help, you just got to give a hand up. So that's why I'm here.
Thank you, Gwen. Thank you, everyone. I'm going to skip this part just because I'm going to share the founding story of ScholarCHIPS. So, that there I'll be able to explain why mentorship is important to me and why I started ScholarCHIPS. I'm just going to change the view here so you could see the full screen. 1 second. Okay, so the founding story of ScholarCHIPS. Back in, this was 2010. At that time, I was a junior in high school. I went to Benjamin Banneker Academic High School in DC. And I had some peers in school who kept saying to me, they would literally walk up to me and say, Yasmin, you should enroll in this program called LearnServe. You really need to go to LearnServe International. Just apply. You would be great. I had no idea what they were talking about. And I did some research and I applied and I had an interview and I got into the program. LearnServe International is also a nonprofit in DC that trains and equips teenagers to be social change agents and social entrepreneurs. And it was a year-long program, and they broke us out into cohorts. There were cohorts of about 20 to 25 teenagers. And there was a curriculum. We would meet about twice a month, and I would get on the train with some of my friends and we would go down to, we met at School Without Walls across from, I think it's George Washington University, I think, over there by Foggy Bottom Metro Station. And we would meet twice a month, and they would have guest speakers to come who were often executives or staff members of various organizations, oftentimes nonprofits that had some type of social mission, or sometimes businesses that have, social and corporate responsibility and things that they did in the community to positively impact people's lives. And there was a question that they asked us. They said one week we were there, what pisses you guys off? And we didn't understand where they were going with that question, but they challenged us to look in our communities, look into our everyday lives in our world, and come up with at least one issue that we wanted to see change and improve. And so for me, I identified mass incarceration, but I did have to narrow my focus since mass incarceration is, a macro scale macro scale, there's so many social and other issues intertwined. So I had to narrow my focus, and I narrowed my focus down to the effects of parental incarceration on children and families. And one of the reasons I decided to focus on that issue is because, like you, Catherine, I am the child of an incarcerated, I've been the child of an incarcerated parent basically my whole life. My father has been in and out of jail and prison since I was 2 years old and is currently incarcerated right now, and I'm 28. So that has been a part of my life. And I understood the emotional, psychological, even physical, financial challenges and obstacles that young people face who have incarcerated parents, as well as the very real stigma and taboo. And that is across cultures. It's across, how do I say? It's across ethnic groups. It's not just one group, that it's not just the African-American community, but in, Caucasian communities, in African communities, even if they're in America, there's still very real stigma and taboo around disclosing that you have an incarcerated family member or parent. So also at the same time, and this kind of goes to Kristen, what you have just recently experienced and are experiencing again with your children is this college application process and applying for scholarships. And so my junior year, that same year, my maternal grandmother and my maternal grandmother raised me and my two brothers. She was helping me. I mean, we were avidly researching scholarships online. And one evening we were sitting down in the dining room, and my grandmother just turned around and looked at me and said, Yasmin, there's so many creative scholarships out here, niche scholarships, but I don't see any for young people who have incarcerated parents. And so my grandmother was the one that actually had that aha moment. And I was like, I said, okay, Grandma, that's a very interesting observation. And it was just something I had in the back of my mind. But then I went back to LearnServe, and they were saying, we want you all to come up with a venture, which is a creative solution to a social problem. And we had to do a business plan and all of this, and we had to pitch our idea. So I was like, okay, Grandma, I really like this idea. Is this, are you okay with me moving forward and actually just proposing this through LearnServe? And I didn't think much of it. I just wanted to complete the project that we were required to complete, sort of like Girl Scouts, okay, I've got to find a project for my Girl Scout Silver Award or Gold Award, but usually you just do it and then you're done. So I pitched this idea in front of a group panel of judges, of professionals like yourself, who were really engaged in their community and wanted to help young people. And after my presentation, some of the judges were in tears, and they loved the idea of ScholarCHIPS. They approved it yes, this venture is ready to launch. And then we got $1,000 seed grant from Ashoka's youth venture. And I was like, okay, now I've got some money. So that was kind of like, okay, so this is real now. I actually have to do something. It's one thing to have an idea, but if you start getting investors, people investing in your idea, it's like, oh shoot, like I actually have to really do what I said I was gonna do. So that's how it started. And then around the same time, I met a woman named Patul Devort, who is a human interest writer, columnist for the Washington Post. And she wrote an initial story, and she ended up writing a trilogy on ScholarCHIPS, which if you have a subscription, actually, because that article is so old, you don't even need a subscription. If you just search ScholarCHIPS, Washington Post, or, it'll pop up. And she also wrote a story when I graduated from undergrad. I graduated from Elon University in North Carolina, and my father, at the time, he was on, I think, probation, and his hometown is Wilson, North Carolina. So he got permission from his probation officer to drive 2 hours to Elon/Burlington, North Carolina to see me graduate. So that was really a beautiful day. And it was like culminating, this moment. I actually graduated and helping other young people to graduate. So to date, ScholarCHIPS has impacted 76 young people. We have about 38 scholars who are still matriculating through college, but out of them, we have 31 that are super active. They communicate with us. Some of them, they show up to our events, and we know that they are still enrolled in college and they're active. They're matriculating through their collegiate programs. And to date, we've awarded over $300,000 in college scholarships. We have a $2,500 scholarship and a $500 book award, both of which are currently renewable for up to 4 years. And we have emergency funding support for our students if they need a new laptop, if their car breaks down, if they have a balance on their student account, because you could have all that you need, but then you don't, some of our young people, their parents or families, or they don't have necessarily the resources, and they could be short just a few $1,000s, which if they, of course, if they don't pay off that balance, they can't continue in school. They can't continue with their classes. So those are the kinds of also situations where we step in and support. And then our one-on-one mentorship program is what you're a part of, that we launched in 2020. It took us 3 years, roughly from 2018, to do the research and to, contact other local nonprofits that have mentoring components to see how they were doing it. Were their mentors volunteer? Were their mentors, paid a stipend? Or did they have people on staff that had caseloads? All of these different models, and what worked well, what didn't. And we adopted our model, and we had a developer to help us develop this program. And so that's what you're a part of today. Currently, we have 24 scholars and mentors who are paired together, matched one-on-one. And then you will hopefully be matched with one of our our 10th cohort of scholars. There are 5, 1 young man and 4 young ladies. And of course, we'll be bringing on, if you're not matched for this cohort, we're bringing on another cohort in 2022. So that is the story of ScholarCHIPS. And there are many success stories that you will learn about as time goes on. Please let me know if you're not already on the newsletter, because I definitely want to get you on the newsletter so you could start reading about our scholars and alumni, and the things that are happening within the organization as we grow our capacity, grow the support of young people. The objectives for this session, of course, you will receive an overview of the ScholarCHIPS mentorship program. You will develop a deeper understanding of mentor roles and expectations that ScholarCHIPS has of mentors and the mentor-mentee relationships. You will learn strategies to build effective and successful effective and successful mentoring relationship. And you will understand our program guidelines and policies. Okay, so this section, and we do have breaks built in between. So we're about to come up on a 10-minute break pretty soon. And then we'll come back, and Gwen will get into our mentoring policies and expectations. And then we'll have another break, and we'll continue with the policies and expectations, and then we'll close out. And of course, in between, if you have any questions, feel free, to interject or put your question in the chat. So this section is about the value of mentorship, and we just wanted to share with you some interesting survey results that we received when we put out a survey for our scholars in 2020. And also the benefits of mentoring. This photo to the right, pre-COVID, around in December, we would take our scholars to usually some theater. It's usually we go to the arena stage, and we would go to see a play, And it's always so much fun. You know, you can see the smiles on our faces are genuine. We always had a blast, and I'm hoping that we can pick back up that tradition. You know, right now during the pandemic, we have pivoted to virtual activities and mentoring activities. And so this past December, instead of doing our normal trip to Ford Theater or Arena Stage, we did a game night, a virtual game night, which was really a lot of fun. So these are some of the key survey results from our Mentee survey that we launched in 2020. Out of the scholars who responded, and there were over 20 of them who responded. Scholars overall, they expressed a need and a desire for mentors and to be matched with a mentor through ScholarCHIPS. 53% of those who responded said they did not have a mentor of any kind. They didn't have a mentor at all. 83% mentioned that they would like a one-on-one mentor matched by and through ScholarCHIPS. 70% of them said that they have time in their monthly schedule to devote to a mentor-mentee relationship. 30 said maybe. And from our 2020 survey of 10 scholars, I have to check on that because I know there were more of them that responded, but 100% of them said they have time to devote to a mentor-mentee relationship. Or 100% of the respondents said they have time to devote to a mentor-mentee relationship. These are some more of the survey results. Scholars identified where they would like more information and support. About 43% said that they need academic support. Over 50% said they want more information on study skills. 53% said they need career guidance. Roughly 77% said they need more soft and workspace skills. And that was something, Dana, that you mentioned that you do regularly within Linea. About 46% said they need emotional support. 63 said they need assistance locating employment and internship opportunities. 57% said they need help in setting and completing their goals. 33% said they need assistance on raising their self-esteem. 97% said they need assistance with financial planning and budgeting. And roughly 83% said that they need assistance with life skills. So there are a lot of different areas where our scholars have identified I do need support here. I do need help. I do need training and additional information. Which is great, which means they're hungry and they're thirsty for mentorship and they are ready to receive a lot of mentoring and training and learning. Skills and qualities of a great mentor. Of course, this list is, these are just a few things that we have identified based on our experiences in ScholarCHIPS that make for a great mentor, but this is not a limiting list, of course. A positive mindset, I sort of mentioned that earlier, so I won't harp on it too much, but, and we all have our moments, I think, in life where maybe it may not be as positive, or it just seems like there are so many things happening that cause us to either doubt or to feel depressed or those types of moments are legit and they're real. But overall, it's helpful, especially for our scholars. And I mean, they have, and like you had mentioned earlier, where particularly in the students that you worked with at Duke Ellington School of the Arts, that some of them had gone through some, serious and major hardships in their lives. And that's the same thing with our scholars in many instances. Just like in 2020, between 2019 and 2020, we had 3 or 4 scholars who lost loved ones. And 2 or 3 of those incidents were because of gun violence. And one of our scholars has lost 3 family members in less than in less than 2 years. And some of them suffer from depression. We have one young man who has manic episodes, right? And so I think it's really important for our mentors to just generally have a positive and optimistic mindset to believe that even when you face challenges and obstacles in life, that, you know, you can get through it, not necessarily alone, but there's a light at the end of the tunnel, like that kind of mindset. Of course, being realistic and acknowledging what they're going through and allowing them to feel the feelings they feel, but just, you know, having that sense of hope, really. To be a good listener, active listening. We'll talk more about that later. Being flexible, that is so huge. It is so huge. If you know, I know you remember what it was like being in college and just life, you know, things happen, schedules change. And so, you know, having that openness and flexibility really helps to make the mentoring relationship more fulfilling and less frustrating, because there will be times when maybe you can't have the check-in. Maybe the student is studying for an exam, or, you know, overslept, I don't know. But, you know, it's good to be flexible. Definitely valuing diverse perspectives. You know, the scholar you both may not have the same purview or worldview or share the same perspectives on various issues. I mean, we can see even with things that are happening in Congress. I learned yesterday that, no, it was on Wednesday, where where senators, they just, you know, they couldn't come to any sort of compromise or compromises on, you know, kind of overhauling policing, and they couldn't come to compromises on police reform because they just couldn't agree, you know, on the use of chokeholds and things like that. And so, you know, I mean, at every level, people won't agree on everything, but maybe, you know, just at least hearing people out and respecting their perspectives, even if we don't necessarily agree. Of course, being knowledgeable, each of you bring your own knowledge and skill sets and experiences into this mentor-mentee relationship. Being non-judgmental is huge, absolutely huge. Our scholars, we've had young people to get pregnant. And it's funny, there was one young woman who came, one scholar who, this was early on, years ago, and I was still in college myself. And I went to visit her in her college dorm. I was at Elon and she was at another school in North Carolina at the time. And she, you know, after our, you know, hangout and everything, she said, "Oh, Yasmin, you know, I'm pregnant." And at first I was like, "Oh Lord," like I said, "No," you know, in my mind, I'm like, "No," you know, like, "No, I want you to finish school and everything." But on the outside, I was like, okay, I have to realize she's excited about this, and, you know, life is a miracle and all. So I just said, "Well, wow, Gabby, you know, congratulations." And I was genuine, but I was scared, part of me, because I was like, I just hope that she doesn't have to drop out of school. And she didn't. I think because, and I can't take credit for that, I don't know that, but ScholarCHIPS had, you know, still continued to support her and had a positive mindset and reaction and just encourage her to finish school. So she ended up transferring to a university here closer to home in the DMV, and she graduated, and she has a beautiful daughter named Bailey, who is now maybe 8 or 9 years old, with a lot of sass and attitude, you know. So you know, and sometimes scholars make some decisions and you're like, okay, you know, like, I'm not sure why they did that, but you know, you remember being in your early 20s and sometimes you do things and you make decisions that are just, either dangerous or don't make much sense. But just even if you may not agree, or I mean, unless it's something really dangerous that you're like, no, I don't know if you should be, maybe you might want to rethink this. But just having an open mindset with them and allowing them to be themselves and express themselves, you know what I mean? Able to give constructive feedback when and where possible and you feel is appropriate, being honest and candid, respectfully, able to network and find resources. One of the things that is so helpful for our scholars is when you offer them various resources. Like we have a couple of mentors who like to send their mentees books, books that they like to read or books that they think would be helpful. Sometimes they share articles amongst themselves. One mentor and mentee, they watched Hamilton virtually together. So being creative and sending them resources is very often very helpful, and they're usually very appreciative. Of course, eager to learn about your scholar, eager to learn about their lives and what's important to them, things that they need help with, and able to devote time to help others grow. Time is so important. It is a sacrifice, but it's a sacrifice of love. And it's one that is rewarding, but it does take patience, and it takes a little bit of, time. So with that, I've talked at you enough. So if you'd like, we can go ahead and take a 10-minute break, and then after which Gwen will come on the scene and we'll talk about our mentoring policies and expectations. So let's see, we would come back. It's almost 11 o'clock now. So what would that be? 11:08?
Yeah.
11. Okay, so we'll come back at 11:08.
Sounds good.
Good.
We have, okay. We have everybody now?
Yes, I think so. It looks like we have everyone.
Okay. This portion of the presentation is about mentor and mentee requirements and expectations. The term of a mentor is 1 year. And what will happen after the entire school year is over, you'll get a cover letter from me, and along with another agreement for you to sign if you want to continue mentoring. And I'm hoping that everybody will sign and come back, because I really believe we have a dynamic group here that could be a lot of help to our scholars. The second bullet is a requirement of 4 hours a month with your mentee. Let me just say that touching base weekly, that is a very crucial point in this whole process, because when you are finally matched with a mentee, that will be the beginning of building trust in the relationship, and them knowing that, yes, I'm going to hear from Ann every week and we're going to have a good engagement. And the more calls that you make, the more time that you engage them, will build in that trust factor that this is someone that I can depend on. And most in-person meetups will be during the summer and holiday breaks when students are home from college. So that'll be the time that you can really engage them, have lunch, go to a movie, a museum, just some kind of activity that takes them away from the college environment for a minute so that they can take a breath.
Question.
Mhm.
If we return after the year, are you matched with the same mentee, or do you get a new mentee?
Well, what will happen is both sides, the mentor and the mentee, will fill out a survey and describe their experience with that mentor. And from what I understand, I've been with ScholarCHIPS since March. And my many conversations with Yasmin, a lot of mentees will ask for that same mentor, if they strike a balance together. Or you could be reassigned. It's up to both parts, the mentee and the mentor.
Yes, and I'll if I may just add to that really quickly. There have been a few instances where either the mentor kind of went missing in action or the scholar went missing in action. It's rare, but it does happen. So if for any reason your mentee happens to go missing in action and you're just having so much difficulty getting in contact with them and having check-ins, then at that point we can reevaluate and see whether you if you want to continue mentoring, if you need to be reassigned, we evaluate that and make a decision based off of that. And on to Gwen's point, the touching base, we realize that you may not end up being able to meet once every single week. But if you can at least do bi-weekly, that would be ideal. We have a situation where, and actually the mentor doesn't know that we know yet. But one of our scholars, and poor thing, I mean, she's so intelligent. She's a straight A student. She's from this area, and she was one of the young scholars who lost her older brother to gun violence. And it just devastated her. I mean, totally devastated her, tore her apart. And she's her mother up, they moved to, I think they ended up moving to like North Carolina or so, but she's going to school at the University of Southern California. She's in a totally different environment. She's becoming adjusted. And then she lost two more family members. I think one was a grandparent and another. And I checked in on her, and she just says, I don't know who to talk to. I don't want to tell my friends because I don't want to be a burden. And I said, well, are you touching base? Now, I understand that mentors aren't, not all mentors are trained psychologists or counselors, but even still, just having that person as a constant in your life can really make a difference. And I asked her, I said, well, are you still touching base with your mentor, per week or bi-weekly? And she said, well, no, we don't really meet anymore. And I was just like, oh my gosh, like her mentor might not even know that she's dealing with this, but because for whatever reason, and I get that we all have busy and complicated lives, but it's just we can't iterate enough. It is so important for you to stay in contact with your mentee if you can, even it doesn't always have to be like a full-fledged phone call. It could be a text, it could be an audio message. If it's not it could be a FaceTime, call, even if it's just a few minutes, but it really does make a big difference. So that was all.
Hey, Yasmin, I have a quick question for you, just because I see this with my kids. They don't love to pick up the phone. Like they will do anything. Like my daughter yesterday, she missed an appointment with someone that was really important. And she emailed, I'm sorry, I missed it. I said, is there a phone number on there? And she's like, yeah. I go, you need to pick up the phone. You need to pick it up and you dial the number so they hear how sorry you are. Like, it's not enough to just send the email. But I feel like that generation, they just don't. I mean, I figure what you do is you say whatever works for you because you're trying to make it easiest for your mentee. Yes?
Yeah, I agree with you on that. And that's I've noticed that too, with this younger generation, especially the Gen Z. They do not want to pick up the phone. They don't a lot of times. So I think you may want to emphasize with your mentee, and these are young folks that already expressed up front that they do want to mentor. And so we also have a mentee orientation, and we explain these things to them. You have, just as your mentor has a responsibility to you, you have a responsibility to them to show up. So we encourage Zoom calls even if it is FaceTime. And most of them will, acquiesce, they'll be amenable to that, or a phone call. But you're absolutely right. This generation is text, email, audio message, because I get it. So maybe if you try to strike a balance, like, okay, maybe one time we have a Zoom call, the next time it's just a text message, or but I think each group, each pair has to determine what works for them.
Yeah.
Okay, Gwen, back over to you. Sorry about
No
that.
problem. Establishing trust, and that was something that I brought up on the first slide. Let me just say that children will trust you, but you have to be consistent. They have to be reinforced and know that you are in their corner. So be consistent with your contact on a weekly basis. And as Yasmin said, if you can't do it every week, every 2 weeks is just as good. It doesn't have to be a long, but you're reinforcing your interest in their life, when you're consistent throughout with the communication. Keep your commitments, because even as adults, if somebody tells you they're going to do something, you look for that person to come through for you. So sometimes children can be grossly disappointed and young adults and adults, if somebody says that they're going to do something and they commit to it, and then you leave them hanging. The next bullet is be present and available, whether it's on the phone call, a text, an email, or you do it in person, FaceTime, Zoom. Jointly take responsibility for planning mentorship activities. I think that both sides have to take responsibility for that, the mentor and the mentee, to figure out what the lines of communication will be, how consistently it'll be moving forward, and just planning out activities that both of you have interest in. Be yourself. Show them that you are a human being. You feel the same feelings that they feel. It's on a different level, but we all feel more secure when we know that we are dealing with a genuine person. They have a good heart and their intention is good. And as Yasmin mentioned earlier, not to be judgmental. Sometimes there are things that shock you that come from young people, but you have to kind of mask that shock in the initial hearing of it, in order not to put them on defense and to make them more comfortable to go to the next level of discussion and disclosure with you. Yasmin, the next slide, please. Okay, building an effective mentoring relationship. We've touched a lot and focused on fostering good communication, and that's key. Listen to the scholar tell their story without interjecting. Let them have the floor so they can get it out. In conversation and listening to stories, that tells you a lot about a person, how they've been living, where they're trying to go. And people like it when you listen. And then it's your turn to give them feedback, which goes to the second bullet, which is the feelings, emotions, thoughts, decisions, and conclusions. We all need help with all of these ranges of emotion, no matter how old you are. So after listening, you internalizing what they've said, then you should always use phrases like, so I understand that, and or what I heard you say, and then repeat what they say, the highlights of it, so that you're confirming that one, you did listen, two, you did hear, and then that will spark another level to your conversation where they then can hear what your feedback is. Don't overshare your personal information. That may come later on down the road. Generally, I would say not to overshare. Invite conversation. And here we go with the positive and upbeat attitude that you need to have, you know, to get them to the next level. Okay, real life situations. This is a slide that was supposed to be covered by Kyle. And we're gonna go past it because Yasmin and I are gonna reschedule him to give you a more in-depth information about interactive mentorship. First, communication with your mentee. You'll get the mentees' names, details about them, and their email address. So on that first communication, you introduce yourself, share your background, ask your mentee their preferred pronouns and name, and the name they prefer to be called. And then exchange details about your lifestyle, your profession, your life experience, your philosophy. And that way they'll get a sense of who you are, and those are the building blocks that pushes your relationship onto another level. And discuss a possible schedule and ways to maintain communication. We have multiple choices at this point, even though they're electronic to communicate. And like Yasmin said earlier, agree what works for your situation on your side and what works for their school schedule. Any questions or comments thus far? What were you going to say, Yasmin?
Yes, ma'am. I just wanted to, if I may, just touch on the preferred pronouns really quickly. I'm sure that in your workplaces, you may have at some point had, whether it was through an HR training or diversity, equity, and inclusion training, you know, all of us are learning. You know, we are in a specific era, and we want to make sure that we are affirming people's human dignity. And, you know, whether or not we agree with their lifestyle or their decisions, but, you know, still letting them know we see them, you know, and we respect them. And so we had an instance last year, actually, with one of our we have a scholar who is a transgender male, or is going through the process of changing from a woman to a man. And she's, you know, she's a woman, but is identifying as a man, right? So her name is Imani, but he prefers to be called Damien or Sway or Swayco. So, and you know, uses he, him pronouns, right? Now we had her at the time, the mentor that was assigned was a woman. And, you know, she approached me, like she had sent me a text message, said, "Hey, Yas, like, my mentee, you know, I think my mentee is transgender, or, you know, I don't know how to ask or how to handle this situation." And so I let her know, we'll ask them their preferred pronouns and the name they prefer to be called. So, you may have, typically currently at ScholarCHIPS, we, match usually a woman or someone who identifies as a woman and female with a woman or a female identified a mentee, and for men, the same thing. But you may have a mentee who looks like a woman, physically, or a man, or however, but we just want to just to avoid any misunderstanding or making them feel uncomfortable. Just in your initial, like, once you all set up your first call, it's just, you don't have to feel uncomfortable about it. All you have to say is, may I ask you, what are your preferred pronouns? And young people, they'll typically know what you're saying. And if they don't, say, do you prefer to be referred as she, her? And they can tell you, oh, well, no, I prefer they, them, or I prefer he, him. And then say, what do you prefer? So their name may be Tatiani, and you say, well, Tatiani, what do you prefer to be called? She may not prefer that. She may say, well, I go by my middle name, Anya. So that's all, just setting that from the very beginning and writing that down and incorporating that. But if you still, I'll say that if you still feel intimidated about that or not sure how to approach that, feel free to reach out, and you and I, we can have a conversation about it. But I just wanted to, bring that to the forefront so that you don't feel uncomfortable and they also don't feel uncomfortable.
Okay, furthering the conversation. Don't limit yourself to just counsel and great tips. It will really help a lot to talk about your profession, your life experience, your work, so that they can get a sense of who you are and what your personal experience has been. Address concerns of the mentee, but refrain from immediately giving advice. Instead, ask questions to help the mentee figure out their own answers and the conclusions that they come to. Because you don't want to suggest something and then it not work. And maybe somebody might say, oh, well, you said to do X, Y, and Z. But if you guide them through the information, give them your own experience, what you know works, maybe they can take some of the information that they draw from you in order to come to the answers and the conclusions that they need to make for themselves. Support the mentee's problem-solving abilities. The bullet previously will help them through that process and make them feel more secure about making decisions for themselves, and their problem-solving ability. Each time they can apply it to things that are in their purview and they know that they have to deal with. So if you can help them, if they don't, some students have that ability, but there are other students who do not. And they need your help to build on to that confidence level to be secure that they can go through the problem-solving process and come to some answers on their own. So that's important. Refrain from circumventing the mentee's personal solution. Anybody have any ideas about how you would go about doing that, or have an example? No?
So I have one. I think what that is trying to say, or how I am understanding that is that you kind of can let them trip and fall a little bit, let them make their own mistakes and come back from that.
Okay, that's a perspective. Anybody else have any scenarios on what you could do? Not to circumvent them or make them feel like, they're on the wrong track. Because sometimes people will withdraw from a conversation.
I would say encourage them to come up with their solution, even kind of going what Catherine said, even though you may not think it's going to work out, like encourage them to just execute it and try it. And then if it works out, great. But if it doesn't, be like, okay, well, great. Now you learned it didn't work out. Let's go back to the drawing board.
Right.
And kind of building that, agility to like bounce back from it.
Right. And then the mentor can provide the feedback, well, maybe at this step, you may want to try doing this, and that might change the course of your outcome or either your thinking or improve your ability. Because, we all fall down and bump our knee, but you have to get back up and try it again. And some people can be discouraged, if they make a mistake or things don't turn out exactly how they had planned or wanted them to. But they need a lot of encouragement, because some of them are going into college and they really don't realize that they have just walked into an adult world. And they're not prepared on a lot of different levels. They may have strengths in other areas, but sometimes we all just need somebody to hold our hand. Anybody have any comments or other ideas? Okay, we can go to the next slide. Okay, virtually engaging with your mentee suggested activities. Talk about why you got involved in the mentoring program, what you look forward to, what makes you nervous about it, and what you hope to get out of it. And also, what does the mentee needs to get out of it? Sometimes they don't know. Kristen, you were saying a lot of times, kids don't know exactly what they want. So they're really dependent on us collectively in ScholarCHIPS to get them on the right track so that they can strengthen their ability to deal in that college environment. And then you can also discuss your mentee's strengths and goals, giving reference to other ways of looking at strengthening the weak spots that they may have, and then building on the strengths that they also have. You can talk about personal things, favorite movies, books, historical events, performers, celebrities, people like sports, even the shows like, what's that, TMZ? They cross the gamut on all kinds of information. So finding out what each of you like, you're going to find some commonality, to bring the two of you together. And that helps to build the relationship. Mentors, talk about your job, how you train for it, what you do on your job. Maybe have them visit, if they're in the area, your job, and just let them get a sense of what a corporation, a nonprofit, an individual business, what it's like to be in that environment. And also, you can kind of help them with how they present themselves in the workplace and even in the college environment. What's appropriate and what's not in the workplace. So that would be helpful because some of them don't really have someone to tell them what's appropriate. For example, I was telling Yasmin about one of my jobs, and I had conducted some interviews. And this young lady came in, and she was very inappropriate in her dress and her presentation for a job with the government. So there may be a lot of suggestions, you know, such as, okay, if you have a limited wardrobe, invest in a nice suit, whether it's a skirt suit, a pantsuit, or for the young men, you know, a suit or a suit jacket, maybe some khaki pants. I have seen so many young people come into the office for summer jobs. The pants are hanging down below the bum. You can see underwear, no belt, you know, the piercings, just a multitude of things, but they need to know how to present themselves in a work environment. And since all of you have this multitude of experience, I'm sure that you'll be good at guiding them as to, you know, knowing the right way to present themselves. Yes, ma'am.
You wanted to go to the next slide?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, it's on the next slide.
Okay. This is the second half continued. Like I said, find common interests, articles of interest, books, columns, podcasts that are in their genre, what they're going to school for would help. I have a friend who sends me inspirational quotes every Friday. And those quotes help a lot. And they can lift you up, make you feel better, give you some encouragement. Share current movies and books that you enjoyed or read. Discuss career options. That's an important one. A lot of students go into a college environment and they have something in their mind that they, you know, want to pursue. And then they may change lanes and decide that, okay, I thought I wanted to do this, but now I'm seeing that there's another area that it interests me more. So I think that discussing the career options would help a lot, or referring them to resources, whether it be a live person, your own company, online, or Google searches. And that may be a definite way to get them on track in case they decide that they want to switch disciplines. Also, it's good to talk about difficulties that you might have experienced and how you overcame them, even in college, when you were in college, and in the work environment. Talk to the mentee about difficulties that they're facing and how you might be able to help them deal with those issues. It's always good to ask them about what's going on in their college experience. And we all have gone to college, so I'm sure that you can come up with some creative ideas to help them through. For example, if they have a roommate who's not quite the same as they are, you can share with them ways to come to an agreement. You know, in that living quarter, you may have one that's really junky and one that's a neatnik like I am, you know, and it's driving them crazy. So I'm sure that that would be helpful. and help the mentee with their LinkedIn profile. I had Yasmin laughing a few weeks ago because I had signed up for LinkedIn some time ago and had not done anything with my profile because life was happening. So there was another person, me, Yasmin, and another person, and they went into the LinkedIn and saw Yasmin's profile and told me, Gwen, you got to get on it, hon, and bring this thing up to date. So please help them with that so they won't be like me doing it after the fact. Help mentee to do a virtual mock job or internship interview. That is helpful. I have done that with some kids from Parks and Recreation. We started with basics about how you write a check. We had sample checkbooks and the running tally. You know, okay, you have $500. You spent $52.50 on that. We help them reconcile the checkbook based on what they spent. Or in other scenarios, we gave them a $500 pot and said, you know, your rent is going to be this, and you have food, clothing, and transportation, and help them to build a budget. I mean, there are even some adults that may not have a budget or may not know how to budget, but that's a lifelong skill that they need to have. And that would give them some comfort so that when they actually do go into the environment for a job or intern interview, it won't be foreign to them.
Can I ask a quick question?
Sure.
I'm wondering, I don't know, either you or Yasmin can field this. Where are your like cohorts when this new cohort, for example, coming in? Are they getting into college this year? They are already in college and now they've found ScholarCHIPS. Like, where is there like a specific entrance point, or does it just vary depending on how they find out about you?
Well, most of the scholars have already started
Okay.
for the fall.
Well, can I, Gwen, so when students apply to ScholarCHIPS, they are graduating high school seniors. So when they come to us, they haven't yet started college first, initially. Yeah, so this cohort, the new cohort that just came in, you know, they applied in March, April. We accepted them in the summer, you know, interviewed them, accepted them in the summer, and you know, had the big celebration in the summer. And they are starting for the first time in, you know, college this semester.
Got it. Okay, so it's not so much because when I was first thinking about it, I'm like, oh, you're kind of helping them like along the path of getting into college and like what that process looks like. But as I look at this and being a director of recruitment, I'm like, okay, well, this all makes a lot of sense too, because, you know, you're like taking them through the actual like college process and preparing them for their exit when they come out.
Right.
Got it.
Yes. And I will say, you know, ScholarCHIPS, there are a lot of areas that we envision growing and expanding. And so one of those is going further back, you know, into high school and actually mentoring and preparing scholars, well, young scholars and young people, students for the college application process, the scholarship application process, all of that. But we just have, you know, I had to start somewhere. So,
yeah,
you know, we started
sure.
at this point. But yes, those are great questions. Gwen, did you have anything else to add?
Yes. Recently, this year, we had a lot of inquiries from parents who had students who were getting ready to graduate out of high school. And Yasmin and I said, you know, okay, we're getting a lot of these inquiries. And I asked her, I said, look, can you put together a resource list? So we now have a bona fide resource list that I'm looking up at, and we'll be adding on to that as we find other organizations that can help us with our job that we're doing for them. One father, an incarcerated father, wrote a letter to us, and you could really feel the pride and the nervousness in his letter about his son. And he explained that he was getting ready to graduate college. High school. And he wanted to know if there were any resources. Well, he saw ScholarCHIPS, and that's how he forwarded the letter to us. And he was so happy when I wrote him back and sent the resource list. And I'm glad that Yasmin was able to put together that list so quickly, because we had about 5 to 6 inquiries where some students weren't eligible because they weren't in the Maryland, Virginia, and DC area. So I addressed letters to all 6 families and forwarded that resource list. So I do want you to know that we do have a resource list for students who may not be eligible for ScholarCHIPS.
Thank you for that, Gwen. I just want to do a quick time check here. So it's almost 11:50, and I realize we told you all 12 o'clock. If you're able to stay with us at least until 12:15, that would be great. I think if you all are okay with it, we have a 10-minute break coming up, but I think it may be best just to, the final section of this presentation is pretty short. It's just covering when there are emergencies. So I think we may just skip over the 10-minute break and just go, just kind of finish up, if that's okay.
Yep, that's good.
Good. Awesome. Okay. And also, I just wanted to, before we go to the next slide really quickly, I'm glad that we had mentioned the LinkedIn profile, but I do want to raise one of the things that I've noticed, and I think we'll need to have a webinar on this. Our young people, I mean, this isn't a surprise to us, but I think they're heavily influenced by media, especially social media. And there are a number of our scholars that present themselves very sexually particularly on Instagram. They've got the teeny cutout shirts, and you can see their under boob or their side boob, and they've got the really short dresses and skirts, and they are presenting as, they're beautiful young women and handsome young men. But I just noticed this is a trend. And I get it, they're young and everything, but if you can, like, somehow when you're having conversations with them, if you could just plant a seed maybe to let them know, like, whatever you put out on social media, it's out there in the hemisphere, it's out there in the stratosphere, and you can never get it back. Like, it's going to be out there. And let them know that there are employers that will look at your profile. So if you could just encourage, some of them make their stuff private, but little do they get it. Like, just because your profile is private doesn't mean that employers or other people won't have access or they can't find your profile. So if you could just kind of plant that seed, because I'm seeing that as a trend, and I don't really know how to, I don't want to hurt their, I don't want to, say that and shut them down and them think like, oh, scholarships is being judgmental and all, but they do need to understand that, it's not just their friends that are looking at this page. And as they get older, those photos of them in bikinis and all this stuff is going to be out there forever. So I just wanted to raise that.
And let me just add, it has become standard practice for government, corporations, private industry, anybody that has a brick and mortar business to search the internet and investigate people and see what they do have on a Facebook or LinkedIn and so forth and so on. And Yasmin is correct in how young people present themselves. And that goes to what is appropriate in a social setting may not necessarily be appropriate in a work environment or college environment. So that was a valid point that you brought up, Yasmin. Engaging with your mentee in person. There is, with all of the social media, Facebook, Twitter, and everything else, nothing takes the place of human contact. That is when you can not just hear a voice or just see an email or send an audio message. You see a person. There are signs, movement, people's expression that reveal a lot to us. So we talked about reviewing the LinkedIn, helping them set up their LinkedIn profile. If they don't have a resume, then they need to start developing that long before they get out of school. Another thing that brings in the human element is send encouraging cards, care packages. We had testimonies from 3 students with another organization that we did a Zoom meeting with. And you should have seen their faces when they talked about how Yasmin sends them care packages and notes. I get excited and moved when I get cards from my friends and family. I just had a birthday 2 weeks ago, and I got 3 cards, and all 3 of them made me cry. So they enjoy that. That's like, you can't physically be there, but that's an extension of who you are and letting them know that someone cares about you and someone's thinking about you. Attending cultural events or sporting events. There are several people that haven't had those experiences. So if you find out that they have an interest in that, that will be another way to do it in person and have, a day out with them. Like I said before, have a shadow day at your office or one of your colleagues' companies so that they can have an idea of how the work environment looks in each type of, whether it's a corporation, a nonprofit, if the person is a teacher, how they teach. And invite the scholar to be your guest at a networking event or a gala that's associated with your job. And that will help them to learn how to network and to observe how those events go, and also to have fun and be exposed to that type of function. And that is it. So we had a break, but we're going to go to the next section that Yasmin is going to cover, the last part.
Thank you so much, Gwen. So now we are shifting into our mentoring policies. I'm going to just change the view here so that I can go to see the slide. We ask that mentors do not engage in inappropriate or uninvited physical contact. We all know why we would not want to, touch a scholar inappropriately, or, make suggestive gestures, please don't share private and share information that the mentee has shared with you in confidentiality with anyone, if including their family dynamics or their finances, their financial situation, personal issues, without his or her permission. We prefer, even though these young people, technically they are adults, but they are still very much ScholarCHIPS responsibility, and we want to protect them and make sure we are good stewards of them as well. And when so we ask that we try to avoid overnight visits or out of town travel with the scholar. But if that has come up once, we have a mentor who you all may know, some colleagues or friends or people in your peer group, or who during the pandemic, they were like, what, since we're working virtual, I'm going to move to Barbados, or I'm going to go to Turk and Caicos, or wherever they're going, and it's becoming a more frequent trend. And one of the mentors who had moved to an island wanted to invite the scholar, but I think she wanted to do it as sort of a graduation gift. And we were grateful that she expressed that to us. And we said, well, the scholar is about to graduate. So they were about 23, 24 years old. So they're adults and they can make their own decisions, but it's helpful for us to know if you plan to actually be traveling somewhere with your mentee, where you're going to go and how long you plan to be there and that kind of thing. But otherwise, you may just want to stay away from that, because if anything happens, that could be a huge problem. ScholarCHIPS we're not a big proponent of you giving money to your scholar. However, we realize that it's out of kindness and custom, you may want to give your scholar a birthday card, or just a greeting card with a gift card in it. So we wouldn't tell you don't do that, but however, you just want to keep in mind that if you do that or you begin doing that, it may set a precedent, and it may become like this informal expectation, but also don't allow, and I don't think this will really happen, because our scholars are very humble, and they don't have this sense of entitlement or expectation of others. And a lot of that has to do with the way they grew up, kind of having to grow up early and do things on their own. But, if you do that, just be cognizant of how that dynamic is playing out, and that it's not becoming like an expectation on their end, or that they don't allow the scholar to guilt you into giving them money or anything like that. If it's something that you decide to do, if you send them a Cash App or whatever, that's your decision. Sorry about that. So I don't know, did you have anything to add to that, Gwen? Any thoughts, or if anyone has any questions about that?
No, I think what you're saying is good about the money piece. Their feelings might get hurt. You might give them a card and a gift card on their birthday, excuse me, 1 year, and then if you don't do it again, their feelings might get hurt. So I kind of agree with that part of it. I would hope that they wouldn't think that it was okay to ask you for money, certainly. That would not be appropriate.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Now this is for if we hope not, but we have had an emergency situation. I think it was either early this year or this summer. But
It
I'll
was earlier this year, once I got here.
okay. So I can briefly share on that, but this is for emergency and crisis situations. So, I mean, they are adults, but your scholar is an adult. But again, if when you're speaking with them, or whether it's over text or whatever the medium of communication is, if you identify, if they mention to you that they have a desire or intention to hurt or harm themselves or someone else, you definitely let us know as soon as possible, like that, because we have seen various situations across our nation where, people made up in their mind that they were going to harm someone, and they grab a gun or whatever, and we don't want to allow that to manifest without trying to be proactive. So definitely let us know about that. If it's a dire emergency, call 911, of course. If you suspect some type of abuse or neglect, please definitely disclose that to us. We won't broadcast it, but it's important. It's good for us to know these things. And of course, if they mention suicidal thoughts or intention or even ideation of it, if they express that, please definitely let ScholarCHIPS staff know, me or Gwen. And if there is an emergency and you really have to, definitely call 911 and let us know. We did have a situation earlier this year that Gwen mentioned, where one of our scholars, and this is a young man who has manic episodes, he deals with some mental health challenges. And he informed us that he called me at 4 a.m. And, he let us know that, his mother and his brother had taken away all of his technology, his cell phone, his laptop, had taken even his ID and his birth certificate and all. And so our scholar was irate, and he ended up apparently going to a friend's house. And we spoke with him and tried to defuse the situation, and Gwen encouraged him. We tried to encourage him, not to go back over to the house, right? We're just like, just cool down, let them cool down before you go back over there. And he was just determined. He went back over to his house, or the house, his mother's house, the next day. And apparently, he gets into a fight with his brother, and they're punching each other and rumbling on the ground. And the next thing you know, they called the police in the ambulance, and then they take him away to the hospital. This was like a couple of days before he was supposed to go back to his to campus, to his college campus. And had he not done that, he would have been able to take the train and go to school, and we could have helped him replace those things, especially the laptop and the cell phone. We could have helped him do that. But unfortunately, he ended up being admitted into the psychiatric ward. So, I mean, we tried to be proactive and get in front of that situation. But of course, with adults, young adults, ultimately they get to make their own decisions. But we were very sad about that, because he ended up missing the whole semester. So that is just an example of something that could possibly happen. Of course, if they express to you in any way that they plan to commit an actual crime, or if you pick up that they are abusing alcohol and or drugs, like really, it's a serious issue and really heavily, please let us know that. Any mental health concerns that you pick up, maybe they're expressing that they're suffering with depression, or they're very depressed, or they're very sad, or they feel very lonely. If these are things that you're hearing, or they keep repeating them, or anything like that, please definitely communicate that with us. If any other issues arise, please contact Gwen and or myself. We have both of our emails and phone numbers on here. You do already have our emails, but definitely take down our numbers. And of course, after this presentation, we will send you this PowerPoint so you have our information, but definitely save our numbers in your phone for sure.
And Yasmin, can I just say one other
Of
thing?
course, of
I
course.
wanted to let the ladies know that Yasmin is working on creating a mental health piece under ScholarCHIPS to address situations just like this. So maybe she could, well, I know it has to go through an approval process with the board and everything.
Oh yeah, they already approved it.
Oh, I thought so. I just didn't want to say and it be the wrong thing. It's so much
Yeah.
information coming in. But I'm glad that we have that option, because it's a lot of young people that are very stressed, and they tend to sometimes react in some irrational kinds of behaviors. And it was very disturbing to see this young man going through what he was going through. Smart, I mean, good grades, smart young man. But, you know, there was something wrong in that household that brought him to that threshold. And I tried my very best to convince him and dissuade him not to go back to that house. So I'll be glad when we can really set up the mental health piece and get that going, because they can experience a lot of stress. And a lot of people don't have or know how to get at services for mental health issues.
Thank you for that, Gwen. Absolutely. I'm so excited about it. It's overdue, but I'm excited that ScholarCHIPS is preparing to launch our mental health and wellness program for our scholars. We have identified a licensed counselor who actually also, now I don't know the name of this, so forgive me if I get this wrong, where if there is an emergency and the police are called to the scene, there are also in some jurisdictions where they require, depending on the circumstances, that a mental health professional also is dispatched to the scene. We have a woman who is actually the wife of one of our board members who is interested in, she will be hopefully hosting, facilitating a psychoeducation group or support group with a small cohort of our scholars. And I heard you earlier, Anne, actually mention that you have a background in grief counseling, grief support. And there are scholars right now that we have who are dealing with and trying to navigate through very real grief. Of loss of loved ones. So if that's no pressure at all, but if that is something that you are interested in, or you know someone in your network that would be willing to work with us to host that kind of psychoeducation and or support group, definitely let us know. And we're very excited about the program. Hopefully we'll be able to bring on a part-time or full-time licensed therapist and or counselor who can be available and on call when scholars have situations or things they just want to get off their chest. They just want to have someone to talk to and work through these things. So it's overdue, but we're really, really, really excited about it. We know it's going to be absolutely beneficial to our scholars. Let me see. I think, okay, so I think there are just three more slides here. In terms of contact with your scholar, please do not get discouraged or give up immediately or very quickly if your mentee goes missing in action. As we mentioned, sorry if you hear they're cutting the grass outside, so sorry if you hear the lawnmower. sometimes scholars, depending on what's going on in their lives, or they're just so overwhelmed with school and work. And a lot of our scholars do work at least one job in addition to taking classes. So they've got a lot on their plate. We just encourage you not to be discouraged or to give up if your mentee is not responding right away, or, of course, you do and you should have an expectation that they do communicate with you and get back to you in a reasonable time frame. But there might be moments where you just, for like a month, maybe you just can't reach them. Communicate that with us, and we will try to also get in contact with that scholar to see what's going on and touch base and see if they are interested and if they're able to pick up their communication with you. But we just want to let you know that could happen, but it doesn't mean, it may just mean that they're overwhelmed. Sometimes youth get inundated. That's why I mentioned just earlier with their studies and activities, or they may be going through something that they feel embarrassed about. We don't necessarily know it, but they feel embarrassed. And so they don't contact you, or they don't contact us. Like, for example, sometimes and I don't really understand the psyche, and we're trying to help them to understand you don't have to be embarrassed, but that we realize that's a very real feeling and emotion. One of our scholars didn't make a 2.5 this semester, and I reached out to her to say, hey, Deanna, just checking on you, really concerned, haven't heard from you. And she said, oh, well, I didn't make a 2.5, and I just couldn't take rejection right now. So that's why I didn't reach out. And I said, well, we understand, it's okay. Don't be discouraged. So I was just trying to encourage her and let her know it's okay. We get it. We know sometimes you take classes that go way over your head or that are really complicated, or maybe you were going through something and you didn't get the grades that you thought you wanted, but it's okay. We're still here for you. We're not abandoning you or dismissing you or rejecting you because you didn't make a mark. Give it some time and attempt to contact your mentee again. And if those attempts do not work, please communicate that with us, because we don't have a way of knowing if you don't let us know. Because if they're not in contact with you, chances are they're not in contact with us regularly either. Make sure that scholarship staff is aware that you have lost contact with them beyond 1 month. So if it's been a month and after a few times you've reached out, you've texted, you've attempted to call, you've sent an email, you don't hear an email or two, you don't hear anything back, please definitely let us know. And then the support that we offer, communications, we'll always keep the lines of communication open with us. You may not hear from us as frequent because our staff is small and we do a lot at this time. Of course, we're working on building capacity, but like anything else, that takes time and finances and resources. You will have occasional check-ins from ScholarCHIPS staff. It will typically, at this time, it will be Gwen, mainly, who will be checking in with you from time to time to see how your mentor-mentee relationship is going. And if there are any ways that we can support you further. There will be program-sponsored events. Like I mentioned, the game night and will be opportunities from time to time where you can join in. It'll mainly probably be virtually, but there may be an opportunity for us in the near future to, just a few to go outdoors and, have our masks on and be socially distanced. There are surveys that go out from time to time about the mentor-mentee relationship. It's really helpful for you to fill those out because it lets us know, it gives us insight and it helps us to know how we can improve our support of you, our support of the scholar, and just how the overall program, how things are going for you and how we can improve. And surveys and evaluations. And when a relationship ends or closes, there is a post-survey and like an exit post survey and exit interview. And then finally, what's ahead? So I think you'll be happy to know that we're towards the end of this first major process that you've been going through. One of the last and final steps is after this session, since you have been here, we know that you're here, you've been through this in our entire mentor and orientation. We are going to send you a mentor agreement. And of course, Kyle, we'll schedule Kyle's presentation as well. And that will be the final piece to your mentor orientation and training with ScholarCHIPS. We do have a mentor agreement that basically is a one-page document that outlines all that we have shared, our policies and what our expectations are and the commitment that you're making to a year of mentoring and check-ins with your scholar, 4 hours a month, weekly and bi-weekly check-ins. And then the matching process takes place. And so we take the information from the original mentor application that you submitted based on your career, your education, what your personal, some of your personal hobbies are. We look at all of that along with the scholars, and we do our best to match you all accordingly. And if there's not a good match at this time, then you would be placed on, if you're interested, to be placed on a waiting list. So I think that is all. We finally made it through. Thank you all so much for being here and your patience with us. Are there any final thoughts or questions? I know that was a lot of information that we gave all at once. So, and I'll stop sharing now.
I don't have any questions, but thank you. That was great.
Yeah, echoing the thank you. It was very thorough and very helpful. I already feel supported. So that's and my other experiences, you kind of just went in a little bit blind. So
We're really glad to have you. And next week, I will forward the cover letter and the mentor agreement. And I wanted to let you guys know that my core work days are Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. And I'll put all of that in the cover email. Those are my core days that I work. But if there is something that you need outside of those 3 days, don't hesitate to call me, shoot me an email. And I'll also repeat my email address and my contact information in the cover letter along with the mentor agreement. But I'll get that to you first thing Tuesday when I'm back in my office officially. So thank you so much for being here. It was nice to see everybody's face and match the face with the name. Have a good weekend. And we will get all of the information out to you on Tuesday, along with the presentation that we gave today.
Sounds good. Have a great weekend.
Thank you so much.
Bye, everyone.
Have a good
Take
weekend.
care.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely.